Joe Rogan just sent shockwaves through Hollywood. Reports claim that on the Joe Rogan Experience, the biggest podcast in the world, Rogan revealed a truth about Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban's divorce that nobody saw coming. According to what's now spreading like wildfire across entertainment circles, Rogan didn't repeat tabloid gossip. He dropped a bombshell that changes everything we thought we knew about their split. For 19 years, the public believed this was a love story that just ran out of time. The official narrative said distance broke them, that Keith toured too much, Nicole stayed home too long, and somewhere in between they grew apart. But if what Rogan reportedly said is true, it wasn't distance that ended this marriage. It was betrayal. Nicole didn't quietly walk away. She found out Keith was having an affair. She confronted him face to face, evidence in hand, and before she ever called a lawyer, she gave him one last chance. End it or I end us. That single line, if real, changes everything, because now it's not about two people drifting apart. It's about a woman who tried to save her marriage, a husband who wouldn't listen, and a truth that's finally catching up to him. What makes this revelation explosive is who's saying it. Joe Rogan isn't TMZ. He's not a gossip blogger. He's a man with one of the most powerful microphones on the planet, a platform that reaches millions every day, from comedians and fighters to country music fans and Hollywood insiders. When he talks, the world leans in, and now that world is leaning in hard. Because if Joe Rogan really revealed that Nicole Kidman caught Keith Urban in an affair and warned him to stop before she filed for divorce, then everything about this amicable split was a cover story. The timelines match, the filings match, even Keith's silence matches, the happy anniversary posts, the sudden custody papers, the clean break with no fight. They all make sense if Rogan's revelation is true. So tonight, we're unpacking the story that has the entire internet buzzing. Did Nicole Kidman actually warn Keith Urban to stop the affair? Did Keith really ignore her and watch his marriage crumble? And what does Joe Rogan actually know that the rest of Hollywood doesn't? Because one thing's for sure, when Joe Rogan talks, secrets stop being secrets.
Nicole Kidman has filed for divorce from Keith Urban after 19 years of marriage.
Keith and Nicole's shocking $325 million split that rocked the movie and music worlds. Now we're tracing the clues.
If anyone could make the world stop and listen, it's Joe Rogan. The Joe Rogan Experience is the most streamed podcast on earth. Tens of millions of people tune into every episode. Musicians, athletes, politicians, scientists, even Hollywood insiders. Rogan doesn't sugarcoat. He doesn't chase PR. That's why when his name gets tied to a story like this, it doesn't feel like gossip. It feels like a truth bomb. Rogan's connection to this story actually makes sense. His Austin, Texas studio has become a magnet for the country music world. Stars who live between Nashville and Texas, producers, writers, touring musicians, are constantly rotating through his guest chairs. Rogan's circle overlaps with Keith Urban's world more than people realize. He spent decades talking to people who live that road life, the hotels, the loneliness, the aftershows, and the temptation that comes with all of it. So when reports started spreading that Rogan had discussed Nicole Kidman discovering Keith's affair and warning him to end it, it hit different, because Rogan's not reading from a gossip headline. He knows exactly what life on the road does to relationships. He's lived it as a touring comic for over 30 years. He's watched friends lose families because of that same lifestyle. So when he allegedly said Nicole gave Keith a warning, a clear ultimatum, his audience understood. This wasn't just marriage trouble. This was a final chance that went ignored. But it's more than just the reach. It's the respect. Rogan's audience doesn't see him as a celebrity host. They see him as one of them. He's the guy who asks the blunt questions nobody else will. The one who calls out fake sincerity the second he smells it. When a story like this hits his orbit, it feels grounded. It feels real. Fans know he doesn't bring up names like Keith Urban or Nicole Kidman unless there's something behind the scenes he's already verified through trusted voices. And those trusted voices matter. Over the years, countless musicians, comedians, and producers have sat across from Rogan and confessed things they'd never say to a journalist. Off-camera conversations turn into whispers that circulate through his circle long before they ever hit the public. That's why when reports claim he mentioned Nicole's warning, it sounded plausible. Rogan's network is practically a backstage pass to Hollywood and Nashville combined. There's also the timing. Rogan's alleged remarks surfaced just as the official divorce filings became public, a perfect storm of truth and curiosity. People started connecting dots, the anniversary posts, the quick custody agreement, the sudden silence. It all lined up too neatly for coincidence. Rogan's name attached to it only amplified the pattern everyone had already sensed. And finally, there's Rogan's reputation for exposing facades. He's built an empire by tearing down illusions, calling out politicians, corporations, and celebrities who pretend to be one thing and live another. So when reports tied him to a claim that Keith Urban's family man image was a performance, listeners didn't blink. They nodded, because that's exactly the kind of story Rogan would spotlight. Not to stir gossip, but to remind his audience that even the most polished public figures can crack behind closed doors. In short, this wasn't a rumor whispered in a tabloid newsroom. It was a story echoing from the world's biggest microphone, one people actually trust. And that's why, when Joe Rogan's name entered Nicole Kidman's divorce, the entire conversation changed overnight.
Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban have separated. T quote, "She's devastated and didn't want this to happen."
Incredible mom. Loving, maternal, you know. My wife, Nicole Mary, is here tonight. I love you, baby girl.
The shocker comes just 4 months after this love fest at the ACMs.
Who's having more fun today, you or her?
We both are equal.
According to reports spreading across entertainment platforms, Joe Rogan discussed Keith Urban's alleged affair during a recent Joe Rogan Experience episode. He supposedly revealed that Nicole Kidman didn't just suspect something was wrong, she found proof. Messages, photos, maybe even a call from someone inside Keith's touring crew, the kind of evidence that shuts down denial before it even starts. The reports claim Nicole confronted Keith face to face, calm but cold, holding the evidence that would tear their marriage apart. And instead of yelling or causing a scene, she delivered one line that would echo through their entire relationship: "End this or I end us." That's the moment, according to these alleged details, that everything changed. Because when you've been married for nearly 2 decades, when you've raised 2 kids together and built a public life on love and loyalty, a warning like that isn't a threat, it's a lifeline. It's a chance to stop before everything collapses. But the reports say Keith didn't take it. He tried to talk around it. He tried to downplay what she found. And Nicole, who'd already spent years holding the marriage together while he toured the world, realized she couldn't do it anymore. What made Rogan's alleged revelation so explosive was that it gave meaning to the quiet details fans had already noticed. The strange distance between Nicole and Keith in their last public appearances, the solo red carpet walks, the awkward anniversary posts. Suddenly, all those moments that once looked like ordinary couple fatigue started to look like something darker, the calm before the storm. People online pointed to the timing, June 26th, 2025. Nicole posts that romantic anniversary photo with the caption, "Happy anniversary, baby." Fans called it beautiful, genuine, intimate. But Keith didn't make a matching post. He didn't even leave a full comment, just a small red heart emoji under hers. That tiny gesture started to feel like a symbol of detachment, like a man halfway out of the relationship already. Within weeks, the divorce was underway. Court filings showed Keith had already signed a custody agreement by August 1st, long before Nicole officially filed in late September. That's barely 5 weeks between anniversary love and legal paperwork. And when you look at it through the lens of Rogan's alleged revelation, it all makes sense. If Nicole really gave Keith that warning in late June or early July, the timeline fits perfectly. She confronted him, gave him a chance to make it right, and waited. When nothing changed, she moved, fast, clean, quiet. She didn't drag it out. She didn't negotiate through tabloids. She just followed through. Rogan's alleged discussion hit home because it felt human. He reportedly didn't frame Nicole as a scorned wife or Keith as a villain. He described it as what happens when love runs into reality, when one person outgrows the excuses the other keeps making. He allegedly said something like, "Every touring guy thinks he can hide things forever until someone at home finds out. Then it's over." That's why people believe the story. It doesn't sound exaggerated, it sounds like life. 2 people in different worlds, one on the road, one at home, connected by love, but divided by choices. And when the truth came out, Nicole did what she always does. She stayed graceful, said nothing publicly, and let her actions speak louder than her words. It's that silence that made Rogan's alleged comments so powerful. Because Nicole never needed to confirm anything. She didn't post quotes about betrayal. She didn't unfollow him on social media. She just ended it. And now, after Rogan's alleged revelation, the world finally understands why.
Nicole. My wife, Nicole Mary, is here tonight. I love you, baby girl. 4 months into our marriage, my addictions that I'd done really nothing about blew our marriage to smithereens, and I went into the Betty Ford Center. Nick pushed through every negative voice, I'm sure even some of her own, and she chose love.
This is where the entire story starts to make sense, because if you line up the public timeline next to what Joe Rogan allegedly revealed, the puzzle pieces click into place almost perfectly. Let's start with what the world saw. On June 26th, Nicole Kidman posted that anniversary photo. A soft smile, a warm caption, "Happy anniversary, baby." It looked like another glimpse into Hollywood's longest-running love story. But look closer. The only thing Keith Urban did in response was drop a single red heart emoji. No matching post, no personal caption, no acknowledgement of 19 years of marriage. At the time, fans thought maybe he was being private, or just not the social media type. But after Rogan's alleged revelation, that tiny emoji reads differently. It doesn't look like love anymore. It looks like distance, the kind of emotionless reaction that comes when you've already checked out. Then, barely a month later, something major happened. On August 1st, Keith Urban quietly signed the parenting plan that would give Nicole 306 days a year with their daughters, leaving himself just 59. That number isn't speculation. It's in black and white. It's legal. And it tells a story that no amount of PR spin can erase. Think about that timeline for a second. From a happy anniversary post to a signed custody deal in 5 weeks. 5 weeks. That's not the pace of a marriage drifting apart. That's the pace of someone making a final decision after reaching their limit. Rogan's alleged revelation fills in the missing chapter between those 2 dates. The confrontation, the warning, the silence that followed. According to reports, Nicole discovered the affair sometime between late June and mid-July. She confronted Keith directly, gave him one clear ultimatum: end this or I end our marriage. She waited, hoping he'd choose family over whatever secret life he was living on the road. but he didn't. So by the time August rolled around, the warning had expired. Nicole had already made her decision. Keith, knowing he had no defense, signed the custody papers without a fight. And then, on September 30th, Nicole officially filed for divorce in Nashville. Even the tone of the court documents reflects the speed. No messy accusations, no drawn-out hearings, just a clean break, finalized with quiet precision, the kind that only happens when one side holds all the leverage. Fans went back and started connecting dots. The last red carpet appearance in May where Nicole stood slightly apart from Keith. The interviews where she praised balance and independence more than love. The subtle shift in how they looked at each other. At the time, no one noticed. Now it feels obvious. Rogan's alleged comments turned that silence into context. He reportedly said that when a couple's public tone changes but their PR stays upbeat, that's usually when the real issues are happening behind the scenes. And in this case, that's exactly what it looks like. He allegedly pointed out that Keith's touring schedule around that time, late June through mid-August, took him across multiple states, performing nearly every night. If the affair rumors are true, that would have made it almost impossible for Nicole to rebuild trust. How do you fix a marriage when one person's gone 200 days a year and your warning just became a countdown clock? The more fans looked at the timeline, the more it fit. A happy post in June, a legal signature in August, a divorce filing in September. 3 moves, 3 quiet but irreversible steps. Rogan's alleged revelation didn't create the theory. It confirmed what people were already whispering. Nicole didn't just walk away. She gave Keith a chance to fix it. He didn't. And once the paperwork was signed, she never looked back. That's what makes this story so haunting, because it's not about rage or revenge, it's about realization. That moment when someone finally accepts they deserve better. And in Nicole's case, it only took 5 weeks for her to prove it. Rogan's alleged revelation didn't just stop at the affair. He reportedly broke down exactly why it happened. And if you followed Keith Urban's career, it's not hard to see the pattern. For years, Keith has been one of country music's most consistent touring artists. Night after night, city after city, he's been known to spend more than 200 days a year away from home, sometimes more. The lights, the adoration, the endless movement, it's a lifestyle that looks glamorous on paper but eats away at reality. And Rogan, being a touring performer himself, allegedly called it out. He supposedly said something like this: "People think fame makes you happy, but living on the road breaks you. It's too much freedom and no accountability." That line hit hard because everyone knew how Keith's life was structured. Nicole stayed in Nashville, raising their daughters, while Keith chased music across continents. According to reports, Rogan talked about how that rhythm, constant travel, constant validation, and constant temptation, creates distance that no marriage can survive. He's seen it happen in comedy, in music, in sports. The road doesn't just separate couples physically, it rewires your brain. It makes normal life feel boring, and the moment a relationship relies on phone calls and text messages to stay alive, it's already running on fumes. Those who heard about Rogan's alleged comments said he broke it down with brutal honesty. He pointed out how the same freedom that helped Keith's career probably doomed his marriage. When you're on tour, there's no bedtime, no school runs, no accountability. Just adrenaline and applause. It's the perfect storm for emotional detachment, or worse, infidelity. And Keith's past didn't make things easier. Fans still remember 2006, just 4 months after he and Nicole married, when she staged that intervention and checked him into rehab. She stood by him then, the same way she stood by him for nearly 2 decades afterward. But as Rogan allegedly noted, that kind of devotion can turn into exhaustion. You can only carry someone for so long before the weight starts to crush you. People online started revisiting old clips from Keith's interviews. The way he talked about touring like it was oxygen. He once said, "Being on stage is where I feel most alive." It sounded passionate back then, but now it reads like a confession. If that's where he felt most alive, what did that make home feel like? Rogan allegedly described it perfectly, that dual identity of touring artists who live 2 lives. There's the version the world sees on stage, charming, humble, devoted. And then there's the other version, the one living out of hotel rooms, surrounded by yes men, where loyalty starts to look optional. It's the same cycle that's destroyed countless marriages before. And Nicole Kidman, according to Rogan's alleged analysis, saw it coming long before the world did. She reportedly warned Keith not just about his behavior, but about the lifestyle itself, the emotional distance, the patterns she'd seen before. The road had become his real relationship, and everything else, even family, was just background noise. Fans pointed out that during the 2024-25 High and Alive World Tour, Keith performed almost non-stop across North America. Dozens of shows, back-to-back weekends, entire months away. During that same period, Nicole was in Nashville filming The Perfect Couple for Netflix, while also caring for their daughters full-time. 2 lives moving in opposite directions. Rogan's alleged remarks cut through the noise. He wasn't speculating. He was explaining. To his audience, this wasn't a story about Hollywood drama. It was a case study in what happens when a marriage runs on separate schedules. He reportedly said something like, "You can't fix a relationship if you're never home to face it." And that, fans believe, is exactly what happened. Nicole gave him the warning. One last chance to choose family over freedom. But when the next tour date rolled around, he chose the stage instead. And by the time the last encore ended, the marriage was already gone. What Rogan allegedly revealed wasn't just about one affair. It was about a man who loved the spotlight more than the silence of real life, and a woman who finally realized that love alone couldn't compete with applause. Rogan's alleged revelation didn't just pull back the curtain on a marriage. It shattered an image. For nearly 2 decades, Keith Urban built his public persona around being the devoted husband, the reformed man who found salvation in love. Every red carpet smile, every awards speech, every interview circled back to the same idea, that Nicole Kidman had saved him. But after Rogan's alleged comments, that image feels different. It feels rehearsed. It feels like a performance designed to keep fans believing in a love story that had already fallen apart behind closed doors. Keith's April 2024 AFI tribute to Nicole is the perfect example. The whole world remembers it. He stood on that stage, eyes glassy, voice trembling, saying, "4 months into our marriage, I was in rehab. If you want to see what love in action really looks like, give that a whirl." Nick pushed through every negative voice, I'm sure even some of her own, and she chose love. It went viral. People called it one of the most emotional speeches ever given by a husband. But now, fans are looking at that moment through an entirely different lens. Because if Rogan's alleged revelation is true, and Keith was having an affair within months of that speech, then that wasn't love. That was damage control. Rogan allegedly dissected that exact contradiction, the difference between authenticity and performance. He's made a career out of spotting people who use public emotion to hide private guilt. According to reports, he said something like, "If you can stand on a stage and thank someone for saving your life while betraying them in private, that's not gratitude, that's strategy." It's harsh, but it's the kind of honesty that made people start rewatching Keith's interviews with new eyes. Those long stories about redemption, those tributes about loyalty, they suddenly sound like lines in a script. And what's worse, the audience started realizing how much Nicole must have known during those moments. She was smiling beside him, standing next to the man she loved, while privately holding the truth he refused to face. That's why Rogan's alleged comments hit such a nerve. They stripped away the Hollywood polish and left nothing but raw contradiction. The man the world believed was the loyal husband might have been the one who broke it all. And then came the divorce details, the cold numbers that confirmed everything the emotions couldn't. Court documents showing 306 days with Nicole, 59 with Keith. That's not co-parenting. That's a schedule you agree to when you know you've lost the moral ground to argue. Rogan's alleged interpretation of that detail was blunt. He reportedly said something like, "No father signs away 83% of his time unless he knows he doesn't deserve it." Fans couldn't deny the math. It wasn't an equal split, and it wasn't random. It was a reflection of who had been showing up and who hadn't. Nicole had been home, present, grounded, raising their daughters. Keith had been on the road, chasing the stage. The custody numbers were simply the truth written in legal ink. After Rogan's alleged breakdown of the timeline, people online started connecting the dots backward. The distance in interviews, the separate red carpets, the shift in tone. Even that one anniversary comment, "Happy anniversary, baby," followed by a single emoji, felt symbolic. It wasn't just minimal effort, it was emotional absence hiding in plain sight. And the saddest part? Nicole never had to say a single word. Rogan's alleged revelation said it all for her. He gave context to her silence, to the grace she maintained while everyone else speculated. While tabloids painted her as cold or career-focused, Rogan's alleged comments reframed her as what she really was. A woman who gave everything, warned him to stop, and when he didn't, walked away with dignity. That's what resonated most with Rogan's audience. The idea that Nicole didn't make a scene, didn't seek revenge, didn't leak details. She just set her boundary and followed through. It's what Rogan calls real power, when you don't have to scream to prove you're done. By the end of that alleged discussion, one thing was clear. The world's perception of Keith Urban had flipped overnight. The grateful husband narrative was gone. What was left was a story Rogan's audience understood all too well. A story about choices, consequences, and how even the brightest love story can end when one person stops listening. Rogan's alleged analysis also focused on one number, the same number that's haunted this story since the beginning, 306 versus 59. That's the custody split Nicole and Keith agreed to. Nicole gets 306 days a year with their daughters. Keith gets 59. If you understand celebrity divorces, you know that's extreme. A 50-50 split is common, especially for parents with flexible schedules. But 17%? That's practically a visitation schedule. And Keith didn't fight it, he just signed. Rogan's alleged interpretation, that's not compromise, that's surrender. Why would someone surrender custody of their children that easily? Because they have no leverage. If Nicole had evidence of infidelity, Keith couldn't risk a public court battle. The documents becoming public would have been career suicide. So he did the only thing he could, accept her terms, stay silent, and walk away. To Rogan's audience, that silence was telling. Not a word from Keith, no denial, no statement, nothing. Just paperwork and quiet. And that's exactly what someone does when the truth would hurt more than the headlines. Rogan's alleged comments didn't stop at Keith. Reports claim he widened the conversation, calling this divorce the perfect example of celebrity hypocrisy. Public devotion, private chaos. Perfect Instagram anniversary posts masking broken trust. He allegedly said something along the lines of, "Celebrities build brands on love stories they don't actually live." And it's true. Keith's image was built around traditional values. the devoted husband, the man saved by his wife, the perfect father. But if the affair and warning theory is true, all of that collapses. Rogan's audience thrives on that kind of truth-telling, cutting through the PR gloss and saying what no one else will. Fame sells love stories, but it doesn't live them. This was never just about a marriage ending. It's about how celebrity culture hides dysfunction behind romantic soundbites. Nicole's warning wasn't just a private moment, it was the breaking point of a decades-long illusion. After the alleged revelation spread online, the reaction was immediate. Fans flooded social media with anger, sympathy, and disbelief. Some defended Keith, calling it rumors. Others sided with Nicole, saying Rogan just confirmed what everyone suspected. But the timeline, the silence, the legal records, everything fits too neatly. Nicole went from public devotion to filing for divorce in weeks. Keith accepted minimal custody without a fight. The man who once said she saved him now barely sees his kids. Whether or not Rogan truly revealed these details on air, his name attached to the story gave it legitimacy. People trust Rogan to expose fake fronts and call out hypocrisy. That's why this hit harder than any tabloid headline. It didn't sound like gossip. It sounded like truth finally being said out loud. Nicole Kidman walked away from a marriage she'd already warned Keith to fix. And Keith, the man who spent years preaching love and gratitude, couldn't follow through. Whether Joe Rogan actually said those words on his podcast or not, the story makes sense. The timeline supports it. The court records back it. The silence from Keith says it all. 19 years of marriage, 2 daughters, a public image built on devotion, gone because of one choice. Nicole found out. She gave a warning. Keith didn't listen. And just like that, Hollywood's golden couple fell apart. Joe Rogan's alleged revelation doesn't just expose one marriage. It exposes how fame distorts truth, how perfect love stories crumble behind cameras. And it leaves us all wondering one thing. Was Keith Urban ever the man he told the world he was? If you're still locked in, hit that sub, because this story's only getting darker, and the next update might just change everything.